Nampe Senjen Tamje Deva Dang Ten Tungyao Tangje Nirdu Lana Me Pa Yang Dabra Zobe Janju Rinpoche Tobra Dala Dala Jebe Da Noper Jebe Ge Karba Da Tamje Gempe Bardu Chopra Jeba Tam Jege Zo Jebe Ma Nang Kadang Nyampe Senjen Tamje Dewa Dan Den Dunya Dan Du Lana Me Pa Ya Dabra Zobe Janju Rinpoche Tobra Dala Dawa Jebe Da Noper Jebe Ge Karba Da Tamche Kembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Tam Jege So Jebe Ma Nang Kadang Nyambe Senjen Tamche Dewa Dan Ten Dunya Dan Du Lana Me Pa Yang Dabra Zobe Chanju Rinpoche Tobra de Sama Geki Bardu Longa Yesum Kewa Logo Mashi Bardu Longa Yesum Kewa Logo Drine Sungte Nema Tsam Ta Samgi Bardu Longa Yesum Kewa Logo Sanje Jodan Sugi Jonam La Chanchu Bardu Dani Kyamsu Chi Dagi Jinsu Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Penchir Sanje Drubra Jo Sanje Jodan Sugi Jonam La Chanchu Bardu Dani Kyamsu Chi Dagi Jinsu Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Penchir Sanje Drubra Jo Sanje Jodan Sugi Jonam La Chanchu Bardu Dani Kyamsu Chi Dagi Jinsu Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Penchir Sanje Drubra Jo Manam Kadang Nyampe Senjen Tomche Dewa Dan Dewe Gyundan Dempra Girji Dumya Dan Dunya Ki Gyudan Dewa Girji Dumya Mepe Dewa Dhamme Dewa Girji Nirin Chada Nidan Dewe Tangyang La Nebra Girji Manam Kadang Nyampe Senjen Tomche Dewa Dan Dewe Gyundan Dempra Girji Dumya Dan Dunya Ki Gyudan Dewa Girji Dungyal Mepe Dewa Dang Me Dewa Girji Niring Chadang Nidang Dewe Tangyang La Nebra Girji Monang Kadang Nyampe Senjen Tamche Dewa Dang Dewe Gindan Dembra Girji Dungyal Tang Dungyal Gi Kyudan Dewa Girji Dungyal Mepe Dewa Dang Me Dewa Girji Niring Chadang Nidang Dewe Daniel La Nebra Girji. In all the worlds of the 10 directions reside Tathagatas of the 3 times. Before each of you, lions among humans, I prostrate joyfully with body, speech, and mind. By the power of this aspiration to noble deeds, all conquerors appear vividly in my mind. With as many bodies as there are atoms in all lands, I prostrate to all you conquerors. In each atom are Buddhas numberless as atoms, all in the midst of the heirs of the Buddhas. Thus I conceive of this Dharma Dhatu as completely filled with you conquerors in this way. With infinite oceans of praise and oceans of diverse melodies, I sing the excellent qualities of all you conquerors and praise all of you gone to bliss. With the best flowers and best garlands, best music, ointments, and excellent parasols, finest lamps, and superior incense, I offer to you conquerors. With excellent garments and best fragrances and sandalwood powder, heap high as Mount Meru, All wondrous offerings perfectly arranged, I offer to you, conquerors, these vast and unequal offerings to each and every one of you, conquerors, with the power of conviction and noble deeds. I prostrate and offer to all you, conquerors, all the harmful deeds that I have done with my body, speech, and mind under the power of desire, hatred, and ignorance. I confess each and every one of them. I rejoice in all the meritorious deeds of all conquerors in the 10 directions and the heirs of the Buddhas. Solitary realizers, hearers still in training and beyond, and all wandering beings. You who are lamps of the worlds of the 10 directions, who have unobstructedly attained Buddhahood through the stages of Bodhi. All you who are my protectors, please turn the unexcelled wheel of Dharma. With palms together, I earnestly beseech you who may intend to manifest final nirvana. Please remain for as many eons as there are atoms in the world for the happiness and well-being of all wandering beings. Whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete Bodhi. This ground sprinkled with scented waters and strewn with flowers, adorned with the supreme mountain, four continents, sun and moon, I visualize as a Buddha land and offer it. May all wandering beings experience such a pure land. To the Gurus who possess the three kayas, I offer the outer, inner, secret, and thusness offerings. With my body, wealth, and all phenomenal existence, please grant the unsurpassed supreme attainment. Whatever slight virtue I may have gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate it all to complete Bodhi. Om Guru Deva Dhagini Rana Mandala Praticha Soham. Please turn the wheel of Dharma of the greater, lesser, and common vehicles in accordance with the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. Doje Janjan Dele Naroda, Mamida Popa Doje Dengum Kardin Sunden Zawela, Mesham Sajula, Mayidam Chogyong La Suwa, Deso Dagji Jinju. Gebrangi Sume Something Get Up at Yong like Sume Get one Doje Jang, Pa Jitengum Peshabla. Tato Samke Gyole Me, Jinji Loji Doje, Nenge Mubasan, Yang to De to Brajin. Good morning to all of you. Good evening to all of you. Before we start, I want to take this opportunity to thank some of you here I know have been involved in this mini campaign to get me new equipment for my Zoom classes. So thank you so much for the effort. I really appreciate that. Then now it's like, okay, I have to dream up other classes to do in order to not incur too much karmic debt. Although this karmic debt might be a good type. We'll see you from lifetime to lifetime for Dharma purposes. Although there is a warning in the Tibetan, they have this expression, this word called kor. Kor is a particular kind of karmic debt. It is said to be rather heavy karmic debt because kor is the kind of weight that comes with gifts that are given with gifts that are given with spiritual type of expectations. And so then it carries a lot of weight so that the person who gets this kor can be weighted down. And so hopefully there wasn't a lot of expectations. Other than in the religious context, like monks or nuns or lamas receiving offerings and therefore accruing kor that can negatively impact them. Often the example given for kor also includes where the recipient is not necessarily seen as a religious figure or spiritual figure, but nonetheless you see the principle of kor. So they say, like, for example, people who win lotteries and like win lottery money, often say that this person from that point on their lives get messier and messier. They say because thousands and thousands and thousands of people bought lottery, right? And they all have a lot of hopes. They all have a lot of wishes. They all have a lot of their, desperate hopes kind of hanging on that pot of money. So then whoever wins it also carries all those hopes, all those desperation, and that can undo them and destroy them. Anyway, as I said, Ani Tsomo in Wisconsin, when I was visiting last week, suggested that perhaps program-wise, so this is my way to unload some of the core, program-wise, maybe after we finish Bodhicharyavatara, there can be a program on the different sets of vows, the different sets of precepts for training. Something more kind of concretely, you know, looking at the prescriptions and the proscriptions, right? The Buddha gave prescriptions on what are things that we should engage in, what are things specifically do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and proscription, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. So maybe after this, we will have a class, a series on the proscriptions and the prescriptions that the Buddha gave. So they are organized into, for example, kind of precepts for training after having taken refuge, precepts for training after taking the individual liberation vows, the precepts for training for Bodhisattva vows. So I think we will do something like this and probably only meet on Tuesdays. Reason being, right now there's already an ongoing series that just started with Khenchen Rinpoche teaching the jewel ornament on Saturday and Sundays. So so as not to pack everything into the weekends, so we might continue on Tuesdays. Much shorter series than the Bodhicharyavatara for sure, on the specifics of these precepts of training, how to approach them without kind of seeing them as like rules to make life difficult. Also without thinking that these are just, you know, things that are nice to do, but if we can, you know, then it's okay. So anyway, stay tuned for this next series for those of you who might be interested in. Then finally, one potential announcement. Not sure yet. This probably is more relevant to people in Southeast Asia. That in October, from October 11th to October 16th, there might be a chance to participate in a meditation retreat in Borobudur in Indonesia. I am scheduled to be there to offer this program to a group that is coming from primarily Mexico to Borobudur, Indonesia. The piece that I'm responsible for is the Borobudur piece of things. The group that comes from Mexico, just to clarify, they are doing something more than those dates from the 11th to the 16th. So they are doing some bigger kind of trip to Southeast Asia. But from the 11th to the 16th is the Shravasti meditation portion, which originally was planned in conjunction with Drigong Kagyu Indonesia. And originally, this was before the pandemic. His Holiness the Drigong Kyabgun was going to be there. Of course, all of that has changed. And now His Holiness has asked me to go do this portion from the 11th to the 16th. So the organizer for that portion, for the 11th to the 16th, not the bigger Mexican Casa Tibet tour, but the organizer for the 11th to the 16th piece has indicated that it is possible for other people to join just the 11th to the 16th portion. Again, this probably is only relevant to people who are already in Southeast Asia. So if you are interested in participating, curious about this program, you should get in touch with Jesper, who is not here today. But if somebody has Jesper's email, if you can type it in the chat, and then have people email Jesper, who is in Malaysia, then he will try to give you some basic information that he has. Maybe the translators can just briefly summarize. Verse 150, starting. So we are now coming to the end of chapter 9. In a way, if we can absorb all the subtle points in chapter 9 all throughout, then of course that's very beneficial. And I would encourage you, especially if you have access to Khenpo Kumpel's commentary, or if you have access to commentaries in other languages that other teachers, whether in the past or contemporary, that has given on chapter 9, I would encourage you to go read those commentaries, especially for those difficult verses that I have skipped over or gone over very quickly. So, for example, there is one, I know of one that has the Dalai Lama teaching chapter 9, where he is teaching where he was teaching chapter 9 based on a Gelugpa commentary as well as a Nyingmapa commentary. The Nyingmapa commentary, I think he was actually reading Khenpo Kumpel. Then there's a Gelugpa commentary, and he combines those two commentaries. And here and there he will say, oh, here Khenpo Kumpel says this, but then a slightly different view from the Gelugpa side says this. So anyway, whatever commentaries that you have on chapter 9, I would encourage you to take some time to look at them on yourself. But the main point I want to, or the point I want to make here is that if some of those sections are simply too difficult, or you think it's just so irrelevant, and to some degree it is irrelevant. Some of my teachers have said so much in the past, that these are individuals who have studied chapter 9 in the traditional way and all of that, and of course see the value of all of that. But then they say when it comes to like more general Dharma practitioners, they say, oh, many parts of chapter 9 just skip over, because they are pointing to such subtle points that it is mostly not relevant to us at this point. But nonetheless, you might be able to draw some interesting insights if you put in the effort. But nonetheless, if, again, some of those difficult points in chapter 9, they are more of an obstacle than help, then don't worry. Then, okay, no need to go look at them again. But importantly is to take to heart, in a way we can say, the conclusion to everything discussed in chapter 9, the conclusion section, which is starting on verse 150 to the end of this text. Khenpo Kumpel actually identifies 150 as belonging to the preceding section, which he says that is the investigation of result. So in the section before that, we kind of went over very quickly and skipped over, in fact, it's refutation and arguments regarding whether there is such a thing as cause and effect. But it is based on refuting the Sankhya view. So here is a good example that it's if you want, if you can, if you want, you should go back and read the commentaries on that section, because there are some interesting things that we can kind of take from that discussion. Anyway, verse 150 says, wandering beings thus resemble dreams, and also the banana tree, if you examine well. In ultimate reality, there's no distinguishing between the states of sorrow and beyond all sorrow. So here, very boldly, Shantideva says, from the ultimate perspective, in fact, both sorrow, states of sorrow, meaning samsara, and beyond all sorrow, meaning nirvana, even samsara and nirvana, there's actually no difference from the ultimate point of view. So, of course, already last time we met, a couple of you already raised a very good point. It is, oh, wait. Are we now, kind of getting too close to this nihilistic view that says, it doesn't matter at all, everything is emptiness, what's the point, right? So yes, we have to be careful that we don't fall into the extreme of nihilism. So here, to prevent the falling into nihilism, as well as to prevent the falling into eternalism or essentialism, 150 actually shows us, first two lines, that On the relative level, there is the dream, there is the banana trunk. But when you begin to kind of realize that this is a dream, first of all, and secondly, wake up from the dream, then the dream disappears. And all the exciting things, sad things, boring things, inspiring things that ever happen in the dream, when you wake up from it, you're like, oh, that was just a dream. Likewise, the banana trunk, that, of course, very solid, as long as the whole trunk is kept intact. But when you peel these layers and layers from the banana trunk, it's actually, I mean, many of you haven't seen banana trunks, so you don't necessarily know what they're talking about. But all of us have seen an onion, when you peel the onion, layer and layer and layer, you find that there's no core to this onion. So that's on the relative level. On the ultimate level, line 3 and 4, in fact, once you have woken up, you know that even so-called samsara and so-called nirvana don't have any essence to them. So let me read Khenpo Kumpel's commentary on verse 150. He says, thus all beings who appear in the various dimensions of existence manifest and yet have no reality. They are like the visions of a dream. when subjected to reasoned analysis, so when we kind of look at it more carefully, look at all these dimensions more carefully, we find that just like the banana tree or the onion, I would say, those of you who don't know banana trees, they are devoid of an underlying essence able to withstand analysis. So here a footnote, right? In this tradition, reason analysis is a tool that we can use before we have like direct perception of reality, which is like the Buddha's ability to directly perceive reality. Here, it is emphasized that we use reasoned analysis. And according to this tradition, this Madhyamaka tradition, whatever reason and analysis can discover that cannot be dismantled by analysis, that is what is called real. However, when you use reason analysis to look at phenomena, Khenpo Kunpa reminds us, no underlying essence can be found. Therefore, all experiences, all phenomena, as you know it, as I know it, they do not have an essence to them. He continues, therefore, on the ultimate level, there is no difference between attaining nirvana and not attaining it, because there is no bondage. Because where there is no bondage, there is no liberation. For at all times there is nothing but the state of perfect equality. The Mula Madhyamaka Karika says, which is Nagarjuna's famous teaching, says, and he quotes from this, he says, between these two, meaning samsara and nirvana, there is not the slightest, not the most, not the slightest, not the subtlest distinction at all.
So this should not be understood in a nihilistic way. Basically, what this is saying is, therefore, on the ultimate level, so let me try to translate this in a way that you can see how this is not saying that nothing matters. It's saying, therefore, on the ultimate level, there's no difference between attaining nirvana or not attaining it. So this is like saying, from the perspective of not being asleep, not being in a dream, when you have woken up, right? You know that all the nightmares and the exciting things that are in the dream, they don't have the slightest difference. They're all part of that dream. So when you're in the dream, so let's say you are in the dream, when you are in the dream, the fact remains that it's just a temporary experience. In fact, your actual body, right, your actual existence is not in the dream. It's in this non-dream world. Likewise, from the ultimate perspective, we are already Buddhists. From that perspective, whether we think we are, in the midst of samsara, or we have gone beyond samsara, from the perspective of how we are now fundamentally Buddhists already, there's no difference whatsoever. When we are not when we are already Buddha, right? But we are already Buddhists. So from that perspective, whether we think we are, in samsara, or we think we are now free from samsara, those two states don't have a slightest difference at all whatsoever. From the ultimate perspective. Now, two things I want to add here. One immediate point is to say, do note that Shantideva, Nagarjuna, in these teachings on wisdom, they don't use the vocabulary of that we are already Buddhists. So they don't use that expression. Instead, the expression they use is emptiness. So that you should know. then they don't use this expression, oh, you are already Buddhist. But they will use the expression that from the perspective of ultimate truth, of emptiness, there's no coming and there's no going, there's no birth and there's no death. Therefore, no samsara, no nirvana. Because all of this is what's happening within the context of a dream. And in order to encourage us, to spur you to wake up from the dream, then the Buddha said, in the dream state, all that you experience is called samsara. Then waking up from that dream is called nirvana. So in the dream state, the Buddha tells us that. But once we are out of the dream, then the bondage and the liberation both has no meaning. And so they express it that way. They don't use this, basically we are already Buddhists. That will be a slightly different way of expressing it. But basically, it's two ways of expressing. One way is using what we might call the language of negation, and the other one is using the language of affirmation. So you are already Buddhist is the language of affirmation. It's Buddha nature talk, Buddha nature expression. Here, in the Madhyamaka emptiness expression, they don't use that kind of expression. So that's the first point that I want to point out here. The second point I want to make is that we should not, get in the habit of saying too much, talking too much, speculating too much about ultimately. And in fact, here, Shantideva doesn't, you have to remember, because sometimes we forget, because we're in a chapter on wisdom, right? So there is a little bit more talk about ultimately. But even that, if you look carefully, he doesn't spend that much time talking about ultimately. Ultimately, there's no samsara, no nirvana. Ultimately, there is no essence. He doesn't, talk so much about ultimately, right? Even in this chapter on wisdom. Then remember that this chapter on wisdom is only one of the 10 chapters of Bodhicharyavatara. But sometimes, sometimes some of us, we get carried away with all this ultimately business. And so this is when we can kind of fall into nihilism. So know that here, the purpose of Shantideva reminding us ultimately samsara and nirvana, even these notions of bondage and liberation of samsara and nirvana, even they are part of just confused existence. Why does he remind us of this? I think there is a very practical reason, which is sometimes, when we're so focused on the path, so focused on removing kleshas, some of us might get so stuck on removing kleshas and the idea of removing kleshas that the idea of removing kleshas itself becomes a new trap that we fall into. So this is a reminder. Even the removal of kleshas, the attaining of nirvana, the freedom from samsara, understand that even they, from the ultimate perspective, lack essence. Judy, are you there? You have a raised hand, but disappeared body. Hello? Hello, anybody home? Anybody home? Okay, she's back.
Sorry, I had to answer the door. Is not trying to get rid of kleshas and all this other stuff a form of self-grasping?
Well,
I mean, all of our aspirations are.
no. Now you're getting nihilistic.
Well, I mean, how is desiring to free oneself?
Oh, you need
different?
that. You need that. You don't have desire to free yourself, then finish, you know.
Right, but is that still not self-grasping in a positive way? But it's still, we're identifying ourselves as someone or something that needs
Yes.
to do something.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm not saying that's not a positive thing, but it is still part of confusion, is it not?
And therefore what?
Well, I mean, it's just a understanding that, but continuing anyway.
And therefore what?
Well, one day, hopefully, we'll realize
Yeah,
what we
so
need
we
to
don't
see.
talk about that like that.
Well, how do we talk about it, or don't talk about it?
We don't talk about it basically like that.
Okay. Okay.
Because you will undermine the importance of. So primarily, we should be focused on dispelling the kleshas.
Right.
All I'm saying,
what
I'm saying here is, look at how carefully Shantideva, even in the chapter on wisdom, doesn't talk too much about ultimately.
Because it's really not that relevant to us right now.
Yes, it's really not that relevant to us, but for here and there, from time to time, he needs to remind us. Okay. What you just said. Yes, what you just said is correct. But right now, for us, only to be used in a very limited way. That's my point.
I get it. I get it. Okay,
yeah, because otherwise it will undermine. When things get tough with removing kleshas, we might say, ultimately, there's no kleshas.
No, I've never thought that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very aware.
Yeah. So we have to primarily be focused on dispelling the kleshas.
Thank you.
But here, very slightly, Shantideva says, but don't forget, it's part of that dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can also veer off in the eternalism side of things, meaning those who like to talk about, oh, we are all Buddhas, we are all Buddhas, we're all Buddhas, we're all Buddhas. You can't get carried away by what you think is the Vajrayana view or the Dzogchen view, the Mahamudra view. Oh, everything is Buddhas, everything is Buddhas, you know. Meanwhile, right, you're still inside the dream. Happiness and suffering still makes you go up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. So also don't spend too much time at all on ultimately.
Got it. Thank you.
So let's take a short break.
wage jware mum, 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 wage jware mum. Wage jware mum, 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 wage jware mum.
Now, this next section, from 151 to 154, here, Shantideva takes us back to the work that we need to do. Now, looking at this issue of emptiness, ultimately, but applying it to the way in which we get tossed and turned, blown around, by the 8 mundane concerns, the 8 worldly concerns. So 151 to 154 is applying this insight with regards to the ultimate nature of things and bringing it into the context of how we should relate to the 8 mundane concerns. So what are these 8 mundane concerns, right? I feel that this is really important that you at least make an effort to memorize them. Because if you don't identify them, you don't memorize them, then very hard to actually stay away or not get influenced so easily. Of course, we will get influenced by them, but at least try not to get influenced by them so easily. So the 8 are divided into 2 columns, right? One column we desire, one column we are really freaked out by, we really don't like. So 2 columns. So under the like column, it's basically gain, honor, or fame, then praise, praise, then pleasure. So on the side of we want. On the side of what we don't want, right, is loss, and then it's dishonor or defame, infamy, then scorn and criticism and blame, all that, and pain, the 4th. So the whole path, the whole context of the path, the process of waking up is we need to know how to strategize. We need to be strategic about when to use what. So don't use emptiness. If you use emptiness, or if your understanding of emptiness undermines the work of waking up from the dream, then it's not skillful. But if we use emptiness and apply it to the process of waking up, in this case, apply it to these 8 mundane concerns, 8 worldly concerns. So here in 151, he says, with things that in this way are empty, with regards to how all phenomena are empty, empty of essence, empty of fixity, empty of permanence. What is there to gain and what to lose? Whatever it is that we think we have gained or we have lost, whatever it is that we think that we have gained or we have lost. Here, references to more about material possessions that we have gained, that we have lost. Can we see that their nature are empty? That only illusorily we have this now and we don't have that later, or we don't have that now and we have that later. So it's not saying that they don't turn up temporarily and go away temporarily. Keyword is to be able to see only temporarily. We say this is here and this is not here. This is going to be here later. This is not going to be here later. All of that. See how the temporary nature of all of this. So then we don't get affected so much by gain and loss. What is there to gain and what to lose? This line, second line. Third line, who is there to pay me court and honors? Meaning, who is there, to praise? And who is there to give me a good name? And who is there to scorn and to revile me? Who is there to scorn me? And who is there to destroy my good name? All of this, they exist only temporarily. Why get all completely under the control of such temporary phenomena, such empty phenomena? 152, pleasure, sorrow. Whence do these arise? From where do they come? What is there to give me joy and pain? And if I search their very suchness, if I look at the reality level, suchness, such is the way things are, such is the way things are, right? If I search for their suchness, for their essence, who is craving? What is craved? We will see that all these are just dependently arising phenomena, temporarily arising phenomena, and there is no essence to them. So 153 says, examine now this world of living beings. Who is there therein to pass away? What is there to come? And what has been? And who indeed are relatives and friends? Even bringing it to the level of relatives and friends, which in Shantideva's time, and within that culture, even today, relatives and friends are very close people. Maybe those of us who live in the US have, less. This is bringing it to something very close and very dear and very precious. Shantideva says, even that we have to get some clarity about. It's not fashionable to say this, Certainly, if you hear this too much, you say, oh, why Buddhism is so negative, Always telling us even what we love, what we cherish. What about my friends? What about my family? Am I not supposed to love them all? But yes, there is Maitri. Then there is fixation, attachment, love. Fine line. But we work on seeing more and more clearly that our fixation, our attachment, to the people that we have gotten used to being around, that is definitely attachment. And as we get older and older, those of us who have, partners in life or partners in crime, the crime of confusion, of course, it's not fashionable to be reminded, hey, every day you're increasing this pain. But we have to look clearly. We have to see. But here, Shantideva is not advocating what I would call negative renunciation. He's not advocating that you develop aversion to your loved ones, whether it's a life partner, whether it's parents, whether it's children, whoever that you care so much, you cherish so much. He's not advocating negative renunciation, renunciation on the basis of aversion. I would say he's not even advocating that we say, oh, I don't want the pain of separation. I don't want to feel the pain of separation that will come inevitably. And so therefore, now I'm just going to live my life with like kind of pushing my hands, don't get too close, don't get too close, don't get too close, That is one way of practicing protecting yourself from suffering. But that is not Shantideva, in my opinion, this is not what Shantideva is advocating. Right? Instead, right, what he's advocating here is this vast view, is how to care for those that we cherish in a way that is spacious, in a way that doesn't. Right now, the way we care for the people around us, the way we care for those who have turned up in our lives, whom we clearly have karmic connections to, both happy connections and sad connections, right? Right now, even when we care about them, it's basically from one perspective. It is saying, let's tie, weight, let's tie rocks to our feet and tie our feet together, our legs together. Tying big rocks to not only my own legs, and then to tie my leg to other people's legs. And then we say, kind of like touching romantic things like, oh, we will live and die together. Then hurl this rock into the ocean and katum, 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 and all go down and suffer. Right now, that's how we are, But here, 154, Shantideva says, may beings like myself discern and grasp, see, get it, that all things have the character of space. That is what he's advocating. He's advocating a kind of renunciation, if you want to call it that, a kind of skillfully relating to all those around us, with an understanding that all things have the character of space. So then, what is this character of space? Neither comes nor goes, no obstruction, no tightness. Everything is released into openness. May beings, 154, like myself, discern and grasp that all phenomena have the character of space. So this section from 155 to 167, Khenpo Kumpel identifies this section as the effortless manifestation of great compassion. When we truly realize this teaching on emptiness, how do we know that we have hit the mark, so to say? Because it's not so easy to understand, to fully realize these teachings on emptiness. So here, Shantideva ends this section on wisdom, on the wisdom, the clear understanding of emptiness, by saying, when emptiness is truly understood, accurately, clearly, without error understood, what comes up is natural, or what's called spontaneous great compassion. This great compassion sees clearly without mistake the situation of confused beings, but also sees very clearly and without mistake the freedom beyond suffering state of all things. Those two come together, unified, inseparable. Those two seemingly opposites can be realized as a unity. And then from that state of great compassion is not just a lot of compassion. Great compassion is a technical term, just as a footnote, okay? So when you say the spontaneous, the natural display of great compassion, we're not talking about a lot of compassion. Great compassion is defined as compassion with no subject and object divide. It simply blows your mind, You're like, wait, ordinarily, the word compassion is to have compassion for someone, already subject and object. Yes, that's our ordinary understanding of compassion. Here is subject and objectless compassion, which is called, the technical term is great compassion. So here we also have to learn a little bit about what is this, great compassion of Buddhists that is without subject and object. So we will look at this a little bit more closely. So this great compassion involves seeing clearly the situation of beings, of confused beings, but also without departing from the ultimate view of that there not be any essence to even samsara or nirvana. That's one way of understanding this. And we will look at this more closely. So all the verses, that came before this in this chapter, right? They were focused on helping us. Shantideva debating all the different philosophies, all the different types of beliefs, right? Both Buddhist and non-Buddhist. All this chapter, he's helping us kind of get a glimpse, get a better glimpse, a clearer glimpse of getting a clearer glimpse of what this ultimate nature is like, right? But the conclusion of this chapter takes us back to the relative state. So this tells us something, that even teachings about the ultimate, the Buddha gave for the purpose of overcoming problems that we, in a confused way, give rise to on the relative level. So I'll say that in the end, it's the relative that needs to be figured out, not the ultimate. So we will end here today. So an announcement, a reminder, we do not meet this Saturday because I have a program here at the temple. If you are close to the temple, come to the temple for this program on Gurukule, the Red Tara Blessing Empowerment and the teachings associated with that. Red Tara especially has to do with the issue of attachment, the issue of attachment, and also how to practice Red Tara to arrive at satisfaction that is free from the problem of attachment. So this is Vajrayana magic. I apologize that there will not be translation into other languages, but our good karma means that we can, if you are physically far away and not realistically possible to bridge that gap, then of course there is Zoom if you want to join. Something is better than nothing. There is this question of like, how much of a blessing can you get through Zoom, especially with Vajrayana empowerment? All I have to say is something is better than nothing. And at the same time saying, if it is within reason for you to come physically, definitely that has a different kind of a different experience, from Zoom. Also, don't forget that. We are three-dimensional beings. So the three-dimensional experience is different from the two-dimensional. So this applies to wherever you are, not just for this Saturday's event. Don't forget, you have a local Sangha. Some of you have more than one local Sangha. Unless there are clear, kind of health issues preventing you, you should make effort to attend in 3 dimensions. You don't want to achieve Buddhahood in 2 dimensions. Again, if someone has Jasper's email, can you type it in the chat so that the people who might be interested in the Indonesia program in October can contact Jasper? Please be so kind as to put it in the chat there. So this is this Saturday. And Javier, if you can put the registration link for this Saturday, so those of you who are not local, it will be a good idea to register so that when we send out the text, the practice text for Gurukule, you will get the link to download that as well. So there is a link to register. Thank you, Javier. And then a reminder from time to time, good to remind people, we provide this service of the 49-day dedication wall. So, if you know of people who have recently passed on and want us to dedicate these Sura offerings and other practices too, you can make use of this dedication wall. If Javier just provided the link. So on that link, you can see right from the beginning on top, you can click to see the Chinese and click to see the Spanish as well. So please share this link with other people. The deceased don't need to be Buddhist, for us to do practices for them. One thing to add about the Indonesia program, the October 11th to 16th, I think realistically, in order for the organizers of that portion, 11 to 16, to make arrangements for a group of people from Southeast Asia to participate, I think it will make it easier for them if there is, like, you know, between 8 or 10 people joining that program. Otherwise, it's a lot of work for them to organize for this edition if we don't find between 8 to 10 people. So please share this with others that you think might be interested in joining. Then it's more likely we can make this happen. And I'm hoping that there is Chinese translation as well for this 11th to 16th. Again, it depends on how many people from Southeast Asia that might be interested in this program. Finally, my guesstimate, guessing estimate, my guesstimate of Shantideva class is that we will complete this course no later than early September, possibly sometime in August. We will end, just so that you might be planning other things. So I think no later than early September and possibly earlier. The dedication chapter, not much to say, you know, except as much as possible, you go back to do dedication there again and again. Changchu sem chorim puje ma ge ba nam ge yu je ge ba nyam ba me ba yang go ne gong du there were sure. Tata.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Lai.
Bye bye.
Gracias, Dr. Lai. Bye.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, Waiting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.